Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am not sitting in front of my movie corner. I'm in Kansas visiting my girlfriend, and so I don't have a movie next to me, but I have my Armor of God t-shirt on, and judging by the frame around me, I am back taking on another atheist. And I'm going to have to start pointing this way because I'm going to put myself on the other side of this screen because this guy's in the corner where I'm usually sitting. So I'll just have to throw him down on the other side. So, this is Dr. Joel Duff, and he is doing a video called Extreme Family Planning, Why Were There No Children on the Ark? And I kind of saw this video come across my feed, so I thought I would just do a quick little intro debunk video, and I've downloaded the video. I'm here, my girlfriend, so I've got internet. Normally I don't have internet, so I download the videos and then I do them individually. So I will continue this once I'm back in Washington. So I'm just here for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to head back because I have some things that I have to do, and then hopefully by the end of the summer 2025, as of filming this, I will be back down here in Kansas permanently. So with that being said, let's jump in here because this guy has some really stupid assertions to make. And, well, we're going to see just how dumb can these assertions get. In fact, let me just cut this really quick. I forgot my Bible because we're going to need to talk about this. Okay? So, this is actually kind of the first time that I've ever heard anybody mention that there were no children on the ark. Normally, I think it's just accepted that God probably would have told Noah and his family, don't worry about having any kids right now because you're going to be building an ark. And, I mean, it's kind of interesting because, like, Noah lived for, like, 500 years and then built the ark. And then in the 600th year, he went into the ark. So we don't know how old his kids were. We're assuming that they were probably up in the hundreds to 200 range because we know that Shem, Ham, and Japheth lived for... let me see here. We know that Shem lived 500 years after he became the father of Arpachshad. So Shem was 100 years old and became the father of Arpachshad, and he lived for 500 years after he had Arpachshad. Arpachshad lived 35 years, became the father of Shelah, and Arpachshad lived 403 after he became the father of Shelah. So we know that they did live for a long time after the flood. So the thing is that we know that Noah didn't have children until, like, close to when he was going to build the ark, according to what the Bible says. So let's jump into this and let's continue on.
Hey, it's Joel Duff. Welcome back to the channel. And I'm going to do a little critiquing creationism, or maybe really, I pretty should have classified this as into the category of unscripted Duff. I find sometimes as I'm scrolling through looking at things, and I follow a bunch of things on young earth creationism, and just sometimes I'm amazed at a simple little question, how it can trigger something that I've never thought of before. And I think, well, thank you very much, Answers in Genesis, for making me go down a line of thought that I had just, I had never gone down before. And it surprises me because it's like, why did I never think of that? Right, Joel, what?
Probably because, A, you're not actually reading the Bible, and B, you don't have any clue what us Christians actually believe. Okay? And so you're running off of faulty worldviews and assumptions and trying to pin all of that onto us, okay, as we're the creationists, okay? So, yeah, good luck with that.
What in the world are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about this very simple question, this little tweet, X post from the Ark Encounter, right? Which is from Answers in Genesis, or Ken Ham's organization.
Yes, it is.
And, they're just, it's a social media post, right? They just throw stuff out there to just keep the conversation going. How many people were on board the Ark? To which there was, well, at this point, when I took this screenshot, only 106 responses, but there eventually ended up being like 500 responses to this.
Okay. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump on over here to X. Here is the tweet in question. How many people were on board the Ark? Okay. Was hearted 146 times. Responded to 117. Now, a vast majority of them was like this one, for instance, is a parody account. And the vast majority of them were responses like this. There was no Ark. Your theme park is a money scam. 0, there was no biblical Ark. None, it's a myth. None because it didn't exist. But you'll see ones like this. 8. Okay. 8, of course. 1 Peter 3:20. 8. 8, according to ancient Chinese characters, for boat and Genesis, which is actually extremely true. And then this person talking about Jewish fiction is historically accurate. Calling it Jewish fiction is historically accurate too. The Noah story is a refresh of older Mesopotamian flood myths, like the Epic of Gilgamesh rebranded into Hebrew literature, which it's not, because those stories would have been around long before the Sumerians were a thing. And then this guy, 8, Noah and his wife, 3 sons and their wives. Here, 8, also evidence the real Ark was found in Turkey, Mount Ararat. 8, all of them. Not sure exactly what he was trying to do there. I think he's just trying to be silly. 8, the number for new beginnings. I still don't understand that one. Says here, 1 Peter 3:20, in the days of Noah, while the ark was being built, in it only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water, and this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also, not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience towards God. This guy says it's an effing fairy tale. This guy says 8, without looking, 8. 8. It's interesting that the 4 men on the arks really spent a year on the yarn and none of them got pregnant. This is that Joel Duff guy right here. And whoops, I don't want to do that. Come on. So let's click on this, guys, and see what it says. So here's his reason for making this video. Okay. So this person said, I wonder why they didn't have any children before getting on the ark. Well, one, depending on how long it took them to mature back then, because nowadays we try to get people married at the age of 20, right? Sometime between 20 and 30. We try to get people married off. We try to get them out. We try to do some things. But back then, I mean, like, Abraham was like... Let me see here. Yeah, so Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. He took Sarai, his wife, and Lot and his nephew and all their possessions. And it doesn't say that Lot got married to a woman out there, so he might have gotten married to a woman when he was living near Sodom, which is why she probably looked back. So, Abram was like 75 when he left. So sometime in Genesis chapter 11, before chapter 12, it talks about him, but it doesn't say exactly when he got married. Okay? So a lot of people then would have probably had a lot slower paced life. Okay? They wouldn't have gotten married so young, A, and they also wouldn't have had kids so young. And most people, and I'm not saying this is every single person, I mean, some people, they have a kid within like a year of getting married. Other people have kids before they get married. But like most people usually will get pregnant either within the first year of marriage, or they'll wait a few years and then, like my brother and sister-in-law did, and then have their kids. Because they got married in like 2000, and then they didn't have their first kid until 2006. So they'd been married for like 6 years before they decided to have a kid. And mostly because my sister-in-law wanted to have a career. Okay, she wanted to teach. She wanted to have some fun first before she got tied down with kids. Because like right now, their oldest that they had in 2006 just completed his first year of college, or is completing his first year of college. Their second son is completing his sophomore year. Okay, and like she's in graduate school, so she's like super busy right now, and she would never have been able to do that if she'd had like young kids at home. You know, they've got one high schooler at home, and you know they're doing stuff. So I'm sure that probably what happened was, and I'm going to mention this a few times during the video, okay? The Lord came to Noah and said, I'm going to build a boat. I want you to build a boat because I'm going to tell you how to build it. And I'm pretty sure he probably told his sons, there's a big old flood coming. You don't want to have young kids on the ark. Okay? So let's wait until after to have kids. And they probably went, sure. Okay? Now this guy says, this Joel Duff guy says, until Answers in Genesis asked this question, I had never thought about it before. Abraham, 500 years old when he has 3 sons, presumably not triplets, and then 600 when they board the ark. I'm thinking he meant Noah. Did the sons wait until they were 100 to get married? Were they not following the creation mandate? What creation mandate? There is no such thing as the creation mandate. Okay. First off, it's Noah, not Abraham, and second of all, okay, it doesn't say that he was 500. It says Noah was 500 years old, and Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It doesn't say that he was 500 and then had triplets, or he was 500 and had them 1, 2, 3. He was around 500. That's all we know. Okay. So I don't know what he's talking about here. The creation mandate. The creation. I'm assuming he's talking about the order by God to fill the earth and to replenish the earth, fill it with people, given to Adam. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds. This is in Genesis 1:28. Over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Then God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of the earth, and every tree of fruit. I think that's what he's trying to talk about, is be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Here's the thing. If God was going to destroy the earth, why in the hell would Noah and his sons have any children at that point, if they knew that the earth was going to get destroyed? Okay? Why wouldn't you wait until afterwards to have kids? I mean, can this guy not keep it in his pants? Yeah, I like this one. How do you know? So, yeah, I don't think that this Joel Duff guy really understands what's going on here. Okay? And so, yeah, this person's being silly. See, this person says Noah, wife, sons, daughters-in-law, any kids they had, grandkids, Noah and his household. 8. 8. And so what this guy's going to claim now, let's jump back over here. What this guy's going to claim now, okay, is that...
I mean, like, how could there be 500 responses to that? It's two kinds of responses. You know, it's like question doesn't mean anything because there wasn't an ark, right? I mean, atheists, there's like, you know, well, none because the ark didn't exist, right? And all right, not interested in those comments. And then there's a whole series of just like 8. It's like, I got the answer right. Yay, it's 8. I know it's 8. I got it right. Please tell me that I'm right, you know.
Okay, that is a generalization fallacy. How many of those people were begging there saying, tell me I'm right? I mean, let's look at this one more time. Okay? How many of these people are saying, like this guy just says, 1, 2, 3, 4, add the wives, 8. I think it's 8. Okay, I think he's being funny there because he's a pastor. Okay, you have 8, 8, 8, 8. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. Okay. See, like most of these people that are doing this, okay, are like trying to do like weird things. Okay. Oh, these people are including Moses, because Moses was saved in an ark. But that's a different story. They're talking about how many people were saved on the ark, not on an ark. Let me see here. Yeah, so how many of these people are going, ooh, 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 ooh? And I want to answer this one. Okay. Incest wasn't a thing until the time of Moses. I mean, for heaven's sake, Abraham married his half-sister. Literally. Incest wasn't a thing until Moses, which was like 1,000 years, 1,500 years after the flood. Okay? Because by then, the gene pool had become diverse enough that, and had started to break down enough that if you were starting to marry a relative of yours, a close relative of yours, that it would cause problems. Guess what? Darwin tried it. Didn't work. But yeah, so yeah, how many of these people are running around like, you know, jumping up and down going, gimme, gimme, gimme. Tell me I'm right. Tell me I'm right. So, like, this guy says 8 with a question mark. Jesus wasn't saved on an ark. Unless you're talking about God. Okay. So, yeah, show me where they're jumping up and down and asking for validation there. You'll notice that he doesn't actually go to this post and say, you know, like, like show you that they're trying to jump up and down for validation, which makes me think that this is him screaming for validation.
You know, like I know something. So you're thinking, wait, Joel, you're going to make a whole video about this one simple question when the answer is either, hey, no, it didn't exist, or it was 8 because the Bible said it was 8. Yes, we're making a whole video about this. Now, by whole video, I don't mean one of my hour-and-a-half long videos. This hopefully will be contained within 10 minutes. So I'm going to show you my response. All right, because here's what I started to think about. And I'm not exactly sure what exactly triggered it, but maybe it was because people said 8. And then I saw somebody who quoted a piece of scripture that, that was like basically like, here's our proof, right?
Yes. So here again, and he's probably going to try to go to that particular one, but essentially we saw this one, 1 Peter 3:20, okay? We'll start in verse 18. It says, "For Christ also died for sins once for all, the just for the unjust, so that he might bring us to God, having been put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which also he went and made proclamation to the spirits now in prison, who once were disobedient, when the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noah during the construction of the ark, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. Corresponding to that, baptism now saves you, not the removal of dirt from the flesh, but an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who is at the right hand of God, having gone into heaven, after angels and authorities and powers had been subjected to him." So, essentially, what this person was doing is that they were quoting 320 and then a little bit of 321, okay? That's what they were doing. And so because this guy doesn't believe in the Bible, in creation, in Christianity, in Jesus, in anything to do with that, he's kind of poo-pooing the idea that we have any, quote, proof, unquote.
Our proof text. And once I saw that, yes, that is what made me ask the question. 8 does not feel like an intuitively right answer when you consider the context of the situation. Let me show you my response. I said, that's interesting. You know, it's interesting that there were 4 women on the ark that spent nearly a year on the ark, and none of them got pregnant.
Yeah, so people can do that. They had to take care of the animals, number 1. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that they couldn't have gotten pregnant. Okay? Because we don't know how old Shem, Ham, and Japheth were when they got on the ark. Okay? And they could have gotten their wives pregnant, and as soon as they came out of the ark, they had their children on the dry land. Okay? We know approximately when that happened because we can count when Shem has his son, Arpachshad, and then we can back that up to when Noah got on at 600, and we can kind of estimate about when Shem had Arpachshad, and we can kind of look at that and say, is it not? How do we look at this? But you see the problem here, okay? You're assuming that he's assuming that either A, they spent a year on the ark and none of them got pregnant, which, again, they had a lot of animals to take care of, which would have taken up a lot of their time. And they probably would have been very tired at the end of the day, and they probably wouldn't have felt like doing anything else other than just going to bed, getting up, taking care of the animals, going to bed, getting up, taking care of the animals. Okay? Which is probably why they're doing that kind of stuff. And see, this is kind of when I did my The Truth Hurts video, where I was basically debunking that guy's whole entire, like, Noah's Ark, doesn't exist. Noah's Ark never worked. Blah blah blah. Because they were trying to put all of these things, and I said, dude, they would have just used juvenile animals. Like, it's called common sense, dude. Think about it. See, the problem is that you have those books, and this is one of the things that the Ark Encounter is trying to get rid of, is you have those books that are great for kids. Don't get me wrong, okay? They're good for kids. But at some point, you have to teach the kids that those bathtub arks don't actually exist, okay? That those bathtub arks actually are just that. They're just bathtub arks. That's not what it looked like. There were juveniles on the ark. They were small animals. They were not large brontosauruses or anything like that. Because that's the stories that our kids get fed. And then when you have someone like this guy, okay, screaming and yelling at all hours, going, these guys don't understand anything. We tend to look at that and say, now wait a minute, buddy boy. Okay? We never said that. Okay? So I showed you his little thing here, okay?
Now, I was purposely being provocative. I wanted to see if I could stimulate some Answers in Genesis followers who are like, saying 8 over again, to just stop for a moment and think about what I was saying.
And most people did. Most people probably just kind of went, could I survive a year on an ark without having sex with my wife? Or, if it's a female, maybe sex with my husband. I could. I mean, I survived 29 years on this earth without having sex with a woman. Or a man. Or anything, for that matter. So, could they survive a year on the ark without having sex? Yeah, they probably could have. Okay? It's only people who probably can't keep it in their pants are the ones going, that just sounds really stupid. How could they ever do that? That's pretty simple. It's called keeping it in your pants.
And I got no responses.
Well, actually, that's not true, because as we've seen, okay, when we look at Mr. Joel Duff's here, he got 4 responses, okay, because he put this down. The first response, okay, came in on April 27th, which this video was published, okay, premiered 6 hours ago. And this is May 13th. Okay. And this was April 27th, and he responded April 27th. And this guy says, I wonder why they didn't have any children before getting on the ark. And then he said that. And the guy, another person came in and said, this Ruby Tuesday came in and said, does the Bible say that? With a couple of thought emojis. This person says, how do you know? This person, this other person, said they might have. Okay. So now, I'm thinking maybe he didn't have anybody like me come in, because I don't have access to X right now. I'm actually banned from X, because I supposedly did something with their terms of service. And so, yeah, I can't respond to that except maybe in video format like this. Okay? But that being said, okay, no, you got some people asked you some questions and you never responded to them. So, who's the one running away from them? So yeah, I mean, because people asked you a couple of thought-provoking questions. What does the Bible say? How do you know that? You know, like, because the Bible doesn't say whether or not they actually had kids when they entered the ark. It says you and your son and your son's wives. In fact, I'll just go ahead and read what the actual passage says because this guy doesn't know what it says. Okay. It says, God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. And behold, I am about to destroy them with the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make an ark with rooms, and shall cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits, the breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. You shall make a window for the ark, and finish it to a cubit from the top, and set the door of the ark in the side of it. You shall make it with a lower, second, and third decks. Behold, I, even I, am bringing flood on waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you." So that right there, okay, verse 18 in chapter 6 says, "But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you." Now, that doesn't actually say that they were pregnant or had any kids at that time. Now, interestingly enough, 7:1 says, "Then the Lord said to Noah, Enter the ark, you and all your household, for you alone I have seen to be righteous before me in this time." And then in verse 7 it says, "Then Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him entered the ark because of the water of the flood." So, there you go. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that his sons were actually pregnant, or his wives were actually pregnant, not his sons, but his wives were actually pregnant, okay, at that time.
Right. And you're like, well, why are you thinking that's interesting? I'm saying, how do I know that they didn't get pregnant? How would I know that they didn't get pregnant? Well, if the Bible says there was only 8 people on the ark, right? And all young earth creationists, would say that a fetus is a person, right? So they couldn't be pregnant. Otherwise, Paul would be wrong when he said there were 8 people on the ark.
Peter. Here again, this guy's never read the Bible. Okay, he has no idea what the Bible says. It was Peter, dummy. I hate when people can't even look at the frickin' comments to even see what the letter was. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now, you'll see here that he says, well, all young earth creationists, say that not all Christians, I mean, I would say probably most Christians would say this, but not all Christians believe this anymore. Okay? Or at least people that call themselves Christians. I would say all Bible-believing Christians do believe that fetuses are children, because they're children in utero. But there is a vast majority of what people would term probably progressive Christians, what I would term prosperity gospel / postmodern hippie Jesus Christians, who have built up a straw man Jesus in their mind that they follow, who think that abortion is okay, and so they don't necessarily believe that it's a child in the womb. They go back and forth on it. Depends on who they're talking to. If they're talking to other progressives or liberals, they will definitely say that, abortion is okay, it's just a clump of cells, fetus is not a child. But if they're talking to conservative Christians or Bible-believing Christians, they will say, oh yeah, they're totally, it's a child in the womb. They're fair weather people, okay? They move whichever way the wind's blowing. because like some people got really mad with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Some of the actual quote conservative Christians unquote, which I don't call them Christians because they're not Christians. So yeah, it's pretty bad. So I wouldn't necessarily say every single Christian believes that. Every single person that calls themselves a Christian believes that. I would say that all Bible believing Christians believe that. Um, but here again, you have to provide me some proof in the text that shows that they were pregnant. Because nowhere in the text does it say that they were pregnant.
That were saved through the flood,
Right.
right? Couldn't have been more Nate. Couldn't be any pregnant women on the ark. But
Well, that's what you're assuming is happening. But again, the text doesn't actually say that. It doesn't say that they weren't pregnant. Okay? It doesn't say that they were pregnant. It just says you, your wife, your son, and your sons and your sons' wives, and your household. Okay? Now, I can take a look at my Bible Hub. Okay? I love this app. This is my new go-to when I can use it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And wait, let's go to 7, and then we will go to interlinear. And said Yahweh to Noah, come you and all your household into the ark, because that you I have seen are righteous before me in this generation. Whoops, I didn't want that one. I wanted to do this one. Beteka. Okay, let's go to Strong's. Court, door, dungeon, family, fourth of great as would contain hangings. Probably from Bana, this is Bayith. Probably from Bana, abbreviated a house, in the greatest variation of applications, especially family, etc. Court, daughter, door, plus dungeon, family, plus fourth of, X great as would contain, hangings, home, born, winter house, or winter household, inside or inside word, palace, place, plus prison, plus steward, plus tablet, temple, web, plus within or without. And then there's a whole bunch of forms and literal translations. So essentially, yeah, this is... So yeah, beteka. So in the New American Standard is you and all your household, for you alone I have seen. King James, come thou and all thy house into the ark. And the interlinear, you and all your household about the ark. Another place is Genesis 17:13. A servant who is born in your house or who is brought. Deuteronomy 6:9. Them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Deuteronomy 7:26. An abomination into your house. Deuteronomy 11:20. Them on the doorposts of your house and your gates. Deuteronomy 15:16. He loves you and your household. Probably makes sense that it's a lot of... considering that Moses was the one that wrote Genesis, he is the one that's using that because he wrote Genesis and he wrote Deuteronomy. So, there you go. That is that word. And so, here again, you're going to have to provide that in that context of you and all your household coming into the ark means that his family was pregnant, when in two separate verses, one in chapter 6 and one in chapter 7, says you, your son, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. Plus, I believe in chapter 8, he tells... then God spoke to Noah, saying, 16, go out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And then 18, so Noah went out, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. And so, there you go. I mean, right there, it goes to show that there's 4 separate verses that talk about just Noah, his wife, his sons, and his sons' wives. That's the point. This guy doesn't have a clue what the Bible actually says. Therefore, you shouldn't take anything that he has to say. Because again, I mean, like, there were people that got married and then didn't have sex with their wives for years. Like, I mean, I know this isn't born necessarily, but when Adam was created and Eve was brought to him, they didn't have children till they left the Garden of Eden. Okay? Chapter 4, after the fall, is when they had sex and had Cain and Abel. Okay? And then Cain killed his brother, and then sometime after that was when Seth was born. So here again, you're going to have to prove to me that somebody can't keep it in their pants for a year. Come on, man.
That then led me to the next couple thoughts I had. Before we get to that, 1 Peter 3:20, the proof text, right? Because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. And here's...
Yeah, so that was 1 Peter, not Paul. Okay, that was Peter, the main apostle that walked around with Jesus for 3 years, not Paul, who was a Pharisee and who was persecuting the church and stoning Christians, or standing by as people were stoning the Christians and holding their cloaks, okay, who met Jesus on the road to Damascus. Two completely different people, man. Get it straight. I don't want to have to say that again.
It says through the water. So that's why I'm emphasizing this verse, is because through the water means that brought them from the beginning to the end, and that's 8 persons.
Yes. Literally, right behind my head, Genesis 7:13, on the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. I literally read that. Are you stupid? Now we'll see if he actually goes beyond in chapter 8, okay, and reads the verses that I read out of chapter 8.
Genesis 7:13, on the very same day, Noah and his sons, so here's the 8, right? Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives of his sons with them entered the ark. So there's your 8. There's your 8 individuals.
Oh, wow!
So
what the hell's your problem then? Dude, you just debunked yourself. You literally just debunked yourself. Because you said, well, I don't understand why people are answering 8. Because I thought, well, they survived a year in the ark. You didn't even look. And you just debunked yourself, because here's the 1 Peter verse. And here's the Genesis verse. Where do you think Peter got it from, you moron? God, I really just can't understand these people. They are just so dumb. Just, God.
not only did I first think, okay, so none of them were pregnant when they got on the ark. So they didn't have any children while they were on the ark. And then none of them got pregnant during a year long in which they were cooped up on the ark.
Because, again, they're taking care of the animals. Dude. Okay. Let me see here. So deck 1 immerses the guest in the size and scope of the biblical ark as the visitors walk through a storage area and learn about animal kinds. Deck 2 focuses on the pre-flood world, animal concerns, and the exploration of Noah and how God could have prepared him for his monumental task. Deck 3 covers plausible living quarters for Noah and his family, flood geology, post-flood events, and a special museum of the Bible exhibit. Animals. The Bible describes Noah's Ark as a safe haven during the flood for all kinds of air-breathing land animals and flying creatures God created. Naturally, people have many questions about the animals on Noah's Ark, and how could Noah have fit all of them on board and care for so many animals? Explore real-life solutions and get answers at the Ark Encounter. Here you go. Okay, it's not species, it's kinds. Okay? What is a kind? The biblical concept of created kind is probably most corresponds to the family level in current taxonomy. Good rule of thumb is that two things can breed together, then they are the same created kind. It is a bit more complicated, but this is a good measure of a kind. It's what I use. It's what I tell people. Okay? If you can breed two canines together, like a Chihuahua and a wolf, highly unlikely, I know, you'd probably have to use IVF, but you could do it. And they're likely to be sterile, but you could do it. Okay? That's a kind. But you can't breed a wolf and a lion, okay? Or a Chihuahua and a house cat. Does that make sense? Those are two different kinds, okay? Now, it says, the Bible states that Noah's cargo was limited to land-dwelling animals in which was the breath of life. Genesis 7:15 through Genesis 7:15, okay? This clearly excludes fish and other sea creatures, and it probably excludes the insects and other invertebrates. How many kinds? Recent studies estimate the total number of living and extinct kinds of land animals and flying creatures to be 1,398. With our worst case scenario to approach calculating the number of animals on the ark, this would mean that Noah cared for 6,744 animals. Ergo, what would they have been doing for 365 days on the ark? Okay? If we look at a basic calculator, okay? Basic calculator, okay? If we have 6,744 animals divided by 365 days, that is an average of 18 and a half animals a frickin' day. That doesn't necessarily mean that, they would have had to have fed all of those animals, okay? So that, I'm just talking about, like, if they wanted to clean out the cages, if they wanted to do all that stuff, okay? This is just if they had that many animals and they were only taking care of about 19 of them a day, okay? Like cleaning the cages and doing all of that kind of stuff, okay? Now, if we take that 6,744 and we divide that by 8, okay? That's about 843 animals per person divided by 365. That means that each person was responsible for about 2 animals a day. Okay? So 8 people taking care of 6,744 animals. Okay? That's a lot of animals that they would have had to have walked around the entire boat to feed, to clean out their cages, to do all that kind of stuff. They would have been freaking tired, man. Are you that dumb? The answer is yes. You see how doing just some basic level research debunks everything this guy could ever say about it, because he's done absolutely zero research.
And so when they had to repopulate the world afterwards, that gives you almost a year delay in terms of having any more children, in terms of starting the next human population.
Okay. maybe nowadays, if you were to say, oh, we're trying to repopulate the earth, we're trying to do this, and a year delay is huge. Back then, a year was nothing, buddy. These guys were living for 900 years. The guys after the flood were living for 400 until Peleg, and then they lived 200 and until Abraham, where they were living in the hundreds. And they were living in the hundreds until, like, Judges. Which is like, here again, just like, with Abraham and stuff, you're talking the flood to Judges, you're talking like 1,500 years, buddy boy. So, yeah. My God. Just like with that Counterfeit Christianity video, tell me you've never read the Bible without telling me you've never read the Bible. This is idiocy of the highest order. Okay? I have never seen a person this ignorant before who calls themselves a doctor and not be able to do surface level research of, I don't know, reading the frickin' Bible. Most atheists have at least read this stupid thing. They may not understand it. They may take it out of context, but at least they know what it says. This guy has no freaking clue. You kidding me?
That's not really a big deal in the larger scheme of things. But then I started to think about Noah's family. And Noah was 500 years old when he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
So do you think a year would make a difference? Somebody slap this guy, please.
Now, if you know anything about the list of nations, and then so and so begets so and so, so and so begets so and so, in terms of the generations before the ark, it always talks about when the first son was born, and maybe if there's another important son. All right, it doesn't talk about dog.
Well, if you're talking about, like, let's say chapter 10. Okay, after the flood, where it mentions, the sons of Japheth, and then it mentions the sons of Gomer. Okay, Javan and Tubal, where it mentions Gomer and Javan, and then it says the sons of Ham, and then starting in 21, it says, also according to Shem, the father of all the children of Eber and the older brother of Japheth, children were born. And the sons of Shem were Elam and Asher and Arpachshad and Lud and Aram. The sons of Aram were Uz and Uhul and Gether and Mash. Arpachshad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. 2 sons were born to Eber. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Almadad and Shaleth, and Hazarmaveth and Jerah, and Hadaram and Uzal and Dikla, and Obal and Abimiel and Sheba and Ophir and Havilah and Jobab, and all of these were the sons of Joktan. Oh, I'm sorry, what were you lying? Are you talking about beforehand, when it's just talking about, like, from Seth to Noah? Okay. It just says he has other sons and daughters. Doesn't matter. Because, again, what matters is the line that is being preserved for the genealogy going toward the Messiah. Because remember that this book points towards the Messiah. Everything in the Old Testament points towards Jesus, and everything about Jesus in the New Testament points back to the Old Testament prophecies and lines and various things. Because we have 2 genealogies, okay, in the Gospels. The first one, okay, is in Matthew. Okay? Matthew is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Okay? And he talks about, he goes from Abraham all the way to Joseph, who is the husband of Mary. So he's going from Abraham to Joseph through David. Okay? In Luke, because they're both Jews, okay, in Luke, he's doing the genealogy of Mary. Okay? Her genealogy. All right? Let me see here. I'm trying to remember where the genealogy of Jesus was. Well, yeah. So, okay, it's in chapter 3. Sorry, I messed up. It's in chapter 3. And essentially what he says is it says the son of Joseph, the son of Eli. But when we look at Matthew, we see that Joseph's father was not Eli. Eli was Mary's dad. Okay? And then it goes back. Okay? Through her line. Okay? Son of Joshua, the son of Eleazar, the son of Joram, the son of Matthat. This is in verse 29. The son of Levi, the son of Simeon, the son of Judah, the son of Joseph, the son of Jonam, the son of Elkiam, the son of Mela, the son of Menah, the son of Mattatha, the son of Nathan, the son of David, the son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Solomon. Because remember that David had a lot of different children. Okay? And so when you go back to, like, say, for instance, 2 Samuel, 1st and 2nd Samuel, when David is doing things, okay, and you look at David's Magi and Haggai the 5th and Shephath Hebron. Let me see here. Let me see here. There was a way that you could look at it and see where there was a way that you could look at it and see where David's son Nathan was, and then you realize that's where his line went through, okay? That's where Mary's line went through, okay? So, essentially, yeah, so essentially that's what it had done. And so... because that was Nathan the prophet, not Nathan the son. But there was another one where it was. But anyway, so yeah, it's essentially there's two genealogies there, and essentially the reason why they preserved them is because they knew that the Messiah was coming out of the house of David, and both Mary and Joseph were of the line of David. They were through two different sons. Okay, Joseph was through the main line through Solomon. Okay, he should have been the next king. Okay, like, or he could have been king of Israel, but the Romans placed a governor, Pontius Pilate, and then they placed a kind of a pretender king named Herod on the throne. Okay, so anyway, we're gonna stop that here, and we'll continue this one next time. So smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below, let me know what you think of this series so far, and as we say, we will see you on the next one.